Is this speculative fiction story more upsetting on the page or on the screen? We'll let you decide. Hey everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome to MsMojo. Today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 differences between The Handmaid's Tale book and TV show.
Are you okay? No.
That means we're looking at all the changes that were made when Margaret Atwood's famed novel was adapted into a Hulu drama series. Alright, let's get to the list. Number 10, Offred's real name.
My name is Offred. I had another name, but it's forbidden now.
As one of the most demeaning parts of living in Gilead, handmaids' names are directly linked to those of their masters. Offred is so named because her master is Fred. In the novel, Margaret Atwood left Offred's real name ambiguous, though there were some theories that suggested her name might be June based on a close reading of the text. In the show, however, they decide to tell viewers her name in the very first episode.
My husband was Luke. My name is June.
This makes sense considering the show uses flashbacks much more than the book does. And we get to see June existing in her former life. Number 9, Serena Joy's age. Although Margaret Atwood never explicitly states what Serena Joy's age is in the book, readers would naturally gather that she's an older woman who is past the age of being fertile.
The chances are better if I lay on my back afterwards.
Just get out.
She's described as being rather unattractive, and it's even mentioned at one point that she has arthritis.
I gave up everything for you. And for the cause. And I only ever wanted one thing in return. I wanted a baby.
The writers of the show, however, wanted to create a more compelling dynamic between Offred and Serena by making the two closer in age. Showrunner Bruce Miller said, quote, "Serena feels something she should rightfully be doing right now is being done by someone else."
You're absolutely glowing.
Oh, yes, thank you. We're very blessed.
Number 8, Janine's punishment. In the first episode of the show, we see a flashback to when Offred and other handmaids are first taking on their new roles.
Welcome to the friggin' loony bin, right?
One of Offred's peers, Janine, misbehaves, and as a punishment, has her eye removed following the line from the Bible that, quote, "If your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it out."
Moira, what'd they do to her?
If my right eye offends thee, pluck it out. With breeding stock, you don't need eyes for that.
In the book, Janine's character is more tame, and it's actually Moira who breaks the rules. And her punishment is a slightly less horrible one. They use steel rods to beat her feet, maiming her in the process.
Her fault. Her fault.
Her fault.
Her fault.
Number 7, the salvaging.
You all know the rules for our participation. When I blow the whistle, what you do is up to you.
In the first episode of the show, the handmaids attend a salvaging ceremony, where a man is to be executed for the crime of raping a handmaid who was pregnant and causing her baby to die in the process.
This disgusting creature has given us no choice. Am I correct, girls?
Yes, Aunt Lydia.
Offred is the first to attack him before the others join in. In the book, the scene takes place later in the story and has an extra layer of detail to it. It's in fact Ofglen who begins the violence, but reveals to Offred later on that in fact the man was a rebel, implying that they were trumped-up charges and that she just wanted to spare him from a long and painful death. Number 6, Ofglen's character. In the book, Ofglen plays a relatively minor role, but the show decided to flesh out the character to be a much more interesting and major figure in the story.
If he accuses you of something, don't defend yourself, don't explain, just apologize. They love to be forgiving.
In Margaret Atwood's version, Ofglen simply disappears one day to be replaced by a new handmaid.
I am Offred.
But in the show, because we're able to see outside of Offred's perspective, we know that Ofglen was in fact persecuted for being in a relationship with a Martha.
Handmaid 8967, you are sentenced to redemption. Sentences will be carried out immediately.
She's forced to watch her lover be executed and is subjected to genital mutilation surgery to cure her of her, quote, unnatural desires.
I know this is a shock for you, Emily. You can still have children, of course, but things will be so much easier for you now.
Number 5, Hannah's kidnapping. June had her baby at a time in history when successful births were few and far between. In the book, June recalls her 11-month-old daughter Hannah being taken from her at a supermarket. She reacts quickly, screaming for help, and the woman who took her is quickly apprehended and waits for arrest.
Excuse me? Excuse me? What are you doing? She's alive.
On the show, the story is even more dramatic, with the attempted kidnapping taking place just after June gives birth to Hannah while they're still in the hospital.
She's not your baby. Of course she is.
The woman who abducts her attacks and maybe even kills a nurse, and is similarly stopped before she can actually get away.
She's okay.
She's all right? She's crying a lot. She's all right?
Number 4, the protests.
Alyssa heard there's a new law. Women can't own property anymore.
Wait, what?
In the book, June's mother was an activist for women's rights, but June herself reacted relatively passively to the rights that women were gradually losing. It's never said that she went to any protests, instead stating, quote, "Luke said it would be futile, and I had to think about my family, him and her." On the show, June and Moira go to a protest together in a flashback scene after it's announced that women will no longer be allowed to work or have money of their own. The demonstration turns violent, and viewers are given more insight into the lead up to the current regime. Number 3, Nick's role.
Good. Good. Thank you. Son.
In the book, we don't learn anything about Nick's past, but the show gives him a backstory and tells us how he came to work in the commander's household. His last name is Blaine, and he hails from Michigan.
There's this group that wants to set things right, clean up this country.
He was recruited by the Sons of Jacob when he was unemployed and hired to keep watch on the commander after the former Offred committed suicide. In both mediums, Serena Joy eventually urges Offred to have sex with Nick because she fears the commander is infertile and wants Offred to get pregnant by any means possible.
But it should be with somebody that we trust. I was thinking of Nick.
Number 2, Janine's salvaging.
Of Warren. We will cherish this child always. Go on, Grace.
By the end of the show's first season, Janine has been brought to a breaking point.
He's coming for me!
In the penultimate episode, she kidnaps her daughter from the Putnams and takes her to a bridge where she threatens to jump off, which would kill both of them. Janine hands off the baby at the last second and ultimately survives her attempted suicide, but is sentenced to death anyway for threatening a child. The Handmaids refuse to stone her though, setting the events of the second season in motion.
I'm sorry, Aunt Lydia.
Meanwhile, in the book, none of this happens at all.
And I'm feeling good.
I think this is one show that does a really great job of adapting and altering the source material to suit more modern audiences. I mean, obviously the book ends and the show continues, so that's a major difference, but we decided to go with more specific things we picked up on. All right, before we find out what the number 1 change is, let's check out some honorable mentions.
Serena. Remember, as long as my baby is safe, so is yours.
You called me when your name came up, and you're on my list.
List of a family.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, I was so worried that she would look like her father. Caleb looked like his father. But she does. She looks like me.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. The technology. Margaret Atwood's novel was published in 1985, so it goes without saying that the story was written in a very different world when it comes to technology.
If you would like to continue to hold, please press or say 1.
1.
Thank you.
To bring the story into the present and make viewers feel a certain immediacy to the action, the flashbacks take place squarely in the world we are currently living in.
Praise be. Things have to change.
I know.
All of the characters have smartphones and use ride-sharing apps, all of which was, of course, impossible in the mid-80s. Atwood imagined a near future in the 80s with things like CompuBanks, but the showrunners clearly wanted to make viewers realize just how close a Gilead-like future could be.
Luke. It's me.
Don't hang up.
One thing that strikes me about the show, at least as a Canadian, is how choked up I get whenever I see the Canadian flag. Also, very tough show to binge. I get so moody. Anyway, how many of you have actually read the book? Let us know in the comments, or come see me on Twitter or Instagram at Rebecca Brayton. Be sure to like and subscribe, and watch this other video. Or don't. This isn't Gilead. You do you.